This, this project actually started, first of all, how many of you attend a field day? Okay, and are some of you with clubs? You ever had a go-to station? Okay, I've worked the go-to station at my club several years. And we have an image with the public that we got to work on. It's not a good one. And I'll tell you the story. This happened in 2015. A young guy, I would guess maybe 11 years old, came to the go-to station and was timid at first, but within 10 minutes, he couldn't get the mic out of his hand. He was so excited. And his mother came up to him, and he couldn't wait to tell him that he'd talked to somebody in California or something like that. And the look on his face was just priceless. And the mother said, well, that's nice, but where are you going to get the thousands of dollars it takes to get the radio? And the public perception is that this is a hobby for rich people. And I took that to heart, and I wrote an article for QST in 2016 that built a 40-meter CW station for under $50. And the whole purpose of that was to show people that this is not the hobby for the rich. It can be for whatever you want it to be. This is a fallout of that, because the first question that the guy asked me is, where's that guy? Where's the guy that you're talking to? So I thought, well, this might be kind of a neat thing to take to your go-to station and just have alongside. And when they say, who are you talking to or where are they, then you can do that. So I've done that. The WhosZat is actually a little device that I made up that answers the question of where a call prefix is, how far is it, and what's the bearing from your QTH to that particular station. All right. I think all of us are avid QRP operators, and we know the importance of a good antenna. But what we consider less is how we orient that antenna. Not all of us can afford a very expensive rotatable beam system. And I'm one of those. I actually have probably enough land in the house to do that, but unfortunately it's not my house. And so my antenna system has to be a little bit more modest. And I was given choices. I could have a large rotatable beam, or I could have an in-fed half wave and still keep my wife. I've been living alone for about, no, I didn't do that. Thought about it. But anyway, one of the things that kind of brought this home for me was Al and I were at a field day over in Vevay, Ohio, or Indiana. And it's got a 600-foot limestone cliff right behind the park where we were. And I don't care how you rotated your antenna, you weren't going past that cliff. So my point is that if you have an antenna, even if it is not rotatable, it makes a difference how you orient it. At my house, I have set up the end-fed half wave, and Jane is still living there. And I am oriented in such a way that I get Europe and the Western Pacific fairly clear, but I almost have never worked anything South America or further north on the map than Japan. So when I repositioned my antenna with Al's help, we rotated it about 90 degrees and a whole new world opened up for me. So obviously everyone knows that that orientation is important. Yeah. Because of that, and the fact that 40 meters is my favorite band, I am not very familiar with DX call prefixes. 40 meters is not a hotbed for DX on CW. When I go out, like on a field day or something, I could take a cheat sheet, right? And have all the call prefixes written out, but that's no fun when you can build something. So WhosZat is the device that I chose to build. What this gives you is, what you do is you type in a country prefix, and there's a database built into the software that has all 408 DXCC calls in it, as well as the capital city associated with each one of those calls, and the longitude and latitude of that city. So when you type in a call and press the button, it does a quick table search and then plots out the world map with a vector showing the line of sight line to that capital city and the distance and the name of the country. So if you're at a go-to station and you're working 20 meters or something where there is some DX, and you have a public person there sitting saying, where is ON1? That means nothing to them, but type in ON1, press a button, and it comes up Purdum. And it'll show 46 degrees. It'll show it 6,674 miles or kilometers. And that's the whole purpose of this WhosZat. I can't really read that. Oh, why bother? And we'll just go through these very quickly. You can increase, the directivity makes a difference on who you're gonna locate. If you're trying to work WHOS with QRP and you need a certain area of the country, positioning the antenna can be useful to know. The WhosZat is very small, and it's easily handled for portable operations. I happen to have one with me. That's it. And there's a 1¼ inch screen on this. Unfortunately, the design does not account for dropping it in the garage on the concrete floor. And as a result, it has an extra aerated feature now. Driving at 5 in the morning and getting ready is not a wise thing to do. But anyway, it's quite small. It would be easy to take on a go-to-field day. It's cheap. It's built using the Raspberry Pi Zero, which costs $4. And I put it with a module that from WaveShare that includes the display, the push buttons, and the joystick, and a board that you just plug in the Zero and you're ready to go. Supply 3.3 volts and it's done. So this would be an ideal project for, you know, a weekend build on your club or something, or even during the meeting. It's so simple. The display and the buttons and the joystick module, as I recall, is $13. So it's pretty easily built. Yeah, club project. I covered that. The output is a stripped version of what is built into the T41 transceiver that Dave mentioned before. The T41, these drawings are actually taken from what shows up on the T41. And what makes this a little bit different is if you go to the address at the bottom there, you can type in your own longitude and latitude, and it will do a world map centered on your QTH. So if you notice in the two figures above, one is centered on Honolulu, and the other one is our house in, Al and I live a mile from each other, so that's good enough for both of us. And then you can see that the impact on the direction is rather substantial, almost 40 degrees, even though they're talking to the same person. So by having the thing vary according to your own QTH, you can personalize this. And what we've done in the T41 is we've taken this just one more step. You can actually have now 10 different QTH locations. So if you're operating from your home, that's one longitude, latitude. And then you go to Florida for a month or two, and you can put that in, and that's another one. And then maybe you spend 2 weeks or 2 months with your neighbor out in Honolulu, that's another one. You can have up to 10 then custom QTHs. The impact of the QTH location is also important if you're working stateside. In other words, if you were in Denver and you were working a 7, that 7 could be Seattle or Phoenix. And that's a huge swing in the bearing that you'd use for that contact. So the database not only has call signs for the different countries, I've also broken it out so that you can get more granularity if you're operating in the US and you have something like the Seattle-Phoenix difference. W7W is for Wyoming, and W7S is for Seattle. And there's some odd things like that, but if you look at the code, you can quickly see what those are. And I also did that for all the Canadian provinces. And I also did it for Australia, because Australia is, let's go back here. As you can see, Australia is kind of distorted and spread out, fanned out quite a bit on the maps that are drawn. If there's a bearing.cpp file that has all of the database information in it. Okay, this illustrates the ability to have up to 10 different QTH locations in the rig that you're using, or you could actually put it into the WhosZat that I just dropped on the floor. The other thing is the portability. The T41 really is not meant to be a portable rig. It weighs about 10 pounds and it's like this square. But for field day, it would be fine. But in those cases where you're doing an activation someplace, the WhosZat would be a good choice. This shows the actual WhosZat here. The joystick is right there. And you can, the reason for the joystick, I better go to, well, first let me show you. That shows the country you're looking at and the call prefix. That shows the angle that the antenna would be aimed. And this shows you the distance in kilometers. And then this is a vector that shows that angle drawn as a vector on the display. The display is triggered by this button up here. These 3 buttons aren't used, so you could use them for something else. Obviously, the map is a compromise. There's not enough resolution on the display to do a good map. So all I chose was to have a circle represent the Earth and then the red line to represent the vector that's being used for the signal direction. The Pico, by the way, when you order this, if you build one of these, the Pico W is the one that supports Bluetooth, and it's about $9 a chip. And the Pico regular is the one that I used here, and it's about $4. There's plenty of memory resources on the Pico. I think you get 2 megabytes, and I think I'm using 33 kilobytes. So you've got 1.97 megabytes left to play around with code that you might want to answer and add to yourself. This shows the wave share module. And actually, the Pico fits right under here. And it's just a plug-in. There's pins there, and it just plugs directly in. You feed it 3.3 volts and you're up and running. That's why it would be such an easy club construction project. And you're really not building anything other than the case. The one that I showed you is powered by 3 AA cells, and that doubles the size of the display, of the whole thing. Obviously, there's a lot of options that you could use for putting this in a different case. The code's pretty simple. I don't think you'd have to be a programmer to do that. And I'm making this code available to you on our website. The website is Software Defined Ham Radio.com. And we'll put that source code up there at next week sometime. This is what the input screen looks like when you first start it. And what you do is you use the joystick, and when you turn it on, the letter G comes up as being highlighted or selected. Then you can push the joystick, like if you pushed it directly to the left, you'll slide this cursor to the left. If you push the joystick up, you go to the number line. If you point it down, you get the second half of the alphabet. So you really get pretty good with this. You can do it in a second or two, enter a prefix. And then when you press this button, when you press this button, that says all the data's been entered. And it displays what you've entered as you've entered it. Then press the activate button. And that's when you get the final output. So the country will be listed here, the degrees to that particular location here, and then the distance in kilometers here. Now, let me go to, be better to go to the code if I can. Well, I didn't. I thought I had the code in here, maybe not. The search is a very crude, just a linear search, because there's only 408 entries in the table. So it finds it very quickly. What I'm not happy about is, even though the Pi 0 is clocked at, I think it's got a 2 gigahertz clock in it. And, but it's still a slow paint. And I haven't figured that out. My guess is I've done something wrong in the code, because this is my first time playing around with a Raspberry Pi. I don't have very much experience with it. But some of you probably have played with a Pi, could probably speed up the code and make it more efficient. Ways to improve the WhosZat. I don't see any benefit to speeding up the search. That's almost instantaneous. The code itself is organized as a string for the country, a string for the call prefix, and then 2 floats for the longitude and latitude. That's it. And searching it is split second. You never notice it as an individual. As far as the portable one goes, I do not have the selecting different QTHs on it. So you would have to change that if you're going a long way away from your home QTH and you want to take it to field day, you should probably go in and change the longitude and latitude for the home base station. Or if you wanted to, take the code out of the bearing CPP file that the T41 has, and that's posted on that website, and pull out select the file and just drop it into the code. There's plenty of room for it, so that could be done pretty easily. The other thing that I would do is have a switch that switches between battery versus a power plug at the home site. Right now, it's either battery or USB through the Raspberry Pi itself, and that's not ideal. Okay. I thought, after I got this started, I thought, well, it would be a good thing if we made this available at home, because there are some products that have the rotator and it has an arrow on it to tell you where the beam is pointing. And the software, I don't know if they still charge for it, but one of the rotator companies used to charge $400 for the software to tell you where the beam is pointed. That's ridiculous. It seems to me that we can take the WhosZat, pull it out of the T41, and make a resident program that sits in the background at your home location. All you'd have to do then is click on it. It would come up, and you would type in the prefix of the call, and then you'd get the normal map. Now, my confession, I haven't done any Windows programming since I retired, and that was 15 years ago. And believe me, I have forgotten a lot since then. Anybody here use Visual Studio? Okay, that's mattering. That's changed a lot too. I used to teach with that when I was teaching at Purdue. We used to use that IDE to teach different languages. And that has changed dramatically over the past 15 years. So anyway, last week I thought, well, it would be nice to be able to take a program and give it to the people that would run as a resident program on their home QTH. And well, that says it all. I've lost my talent for programming under Windows. But this is where I am right now. I have this much working. And you can see up here is the country, the bearing, and the distance. What's missing is the vector array that shows that angle plotted on this world map. And that's where all the fun is. Being able to show that to somebody who's in the shack, because the first question they're going to ask you is, when you're talking to a foreign country, where is he? And because call letters mean nothing to them. And this is kind of a gee whiz thing that works pretty well for showing your guest who you're talking to and how far it is to where they are. So I am working on that. This is that's the URL for our website. And I will be posting this code when it's finished on that website, and you can just go there and take it. Now, I should warn you that I leave tomorrow morning early for a week-long fishing trip with my son, so I won't have time to get back to it until a week from Sunday. But look for it sometime at whatever that date is. Look for it sometime after that. There's nothing tricky about the code. It's fairly straightforward and easy to do. Well, we pretty much know what it does. Okay. Short and sweet. Any questions? Sure. By the way. Oh, thank you. By the way, our new book will be on sale tonight. Hal's got a copy, and those will be autographed if you wish. And normally we charge $11,500 for an autographed copy, but tonight only $40. And by the way, that's cheaper than you can buy it on Amazon. It's $45 on Amazon.
Is the WhosZat in the book?
It's under the chapter that talks about the bearing code.
Okay,
It's in chapter 18, I believe, 17 or 18.
okay. Circuits in there too, so I can use that to create a little.
Not for the WhosZat. The code in the book is for the T41.
Okay,
But I lifted the code out of bearing and just dropped it into the Raspberry Pi, and it worked without change at all. 60.
okay.
So it should be an easy drop in.
So the actual circuit for it, is that available anywhere?
The circuit, there is no circuit.
Okay,
The only electronics on the WhosZat is the Raspberry Pi to drive the display. So it's all software to make the display show what you want.
Okay.
You could rewire this and recode it for, one of those 3.5-inch TFT displays and still make it portable. There's nothing magical about the circuit.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Good morning. Dennis, WR4I. Being a avid QRPer, you know how many milliwatts the thing uses? What I was thinking of is using coin cells that just turn it on when you need it.
We were gonna do that, but Al had a battery holder for the AAA 3 cell, so that's why we used it. The coin cell would work perfectly, and I calculated the battery draw based on the display, and it was, as I recall, and I might be wrong, I think it was 60 milliamps. So it's enough of a draw that I would turn it off when you're not using it, but it's not. It's going to last you at least long enough for a weekend or something.
Thanks. This is based, as you presented it, on a Raspberry Pi Pico, one of the little bitty microcontrollers. That's more than enough power for it, but I'm thinking of this at field day, especially at a GOTA station, just like you mentioned at the beginning. The little joystick thing is a very clever and inexpensive way to enter the call prefix.
Yeah, you want the keyboard.
If it were up to, say, a Pi Zero, which is way overkill for it, but that makes adding a keyboard to it so easy.
It is, and there's a library, a Raspberry Pi library that talks about a USB keyboard interface. And I think it's ported for the Pico.
Well, if it's for the Pico, that's the ideal way. Okay,
So
thanks.
then in fact, I think it's only a 4-connection USB connector. And then you could take one of those little key. The reason that I did this was originally thinking that somebody would put it in a shirt pocket and go hike up a mountain. But I think now it also has use for people at home. If they have a rotatable beam, or even if they don't, you're just relocating your antenna.
Just thinking a lot of kids around a tiny thing with an itty bitty
Oh, yeah,
keyboard makes that big.
yeah. Well, and that's another reason I did this, because then you can put this on a surface, put it next to the go-to display in your home frame. Yes.
This is a very cool project. One thing that came to mind, and I wonder how, it'd probably be a little challenge to implement, but I wonder if you could put it in line with your key or your keyer so that as you're doing the exchange, it could read the call. And so as you're doing it live, it would then, the data entry could be done by the fact that you're returning the call back to them.
Okay. You ever notice how software is free? And easy. Actually, I thought of that because the T41 has a decoder, and I gave a paper on that 2 years ago. And the decoder is good enough that it could read the incoming call and pop up that map in real time while you're talking. So, yeah, I thought about that, but I didn't do it. But, it would be a great project for you, and if you do it, let the rest of us see it. Okay, next. Oh, yeah, in the back.
Hi, good morning. Great conversation piece. Joe, KC2J, Tucson, Arizona. Just curious, I noticed in your presentation that's in the proceedings, it says you did a development in C using the Arduino IDE.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious, does that imply that the Pico is compatible with Arduino?
It is.
I did not know that. Thank you
Yes.
very much for
You can,
clarifying.
all the libraries, I have not run into a library yet that doesn't work with the Pico. And it's right on the direct menu choices now for, the boards that it supports. And it supports almost, I can't think of a Raspberry Pi board it doesn't support. So yes, you can use the.
Okay, because I haven't done any Pi programming for about 8 years, but I've been doing a lot of Arduino stuff in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
So it just really caught my
this
attention.
is right on the list. Just pull it off and have at it.
Great, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Anything else? Well, what's the capital of Tuvalu? That's a good question because you should know where Tuvalu is because it's the first country that celebrates New Year's. So it's in the Pacific. But the capital city is the greatest name I've ever run across. The name of the capital of Tuvalu is Funafuti. Okay, so you learned something. No other questions? I'm sorry, I blew through that quicker than I expected. Okay, thank you.